They're going to do it, aren't they? You know what I'm talking about. They're actually going to do it. They're legitimately going to do it, aren't they? You know what? Let's actually. Do you remember in the offseason, I said that I think the Flyers are going to make the playoffs? I said in the offseason. And then I questioned a couple of things, and I was like, you better hope Sam Ersson and Dan Vladar can somehow figure this thing out. But in theory, they should be able to make the playoffs. And then Dan Vladar spent months and months being a stud. And in January, team fell off. Vladar got hurt. And now that stands out as an anomaly. And now as we start the show today, March 30th, the year of our Lord 2020-26, the Flyers are only 2 points out of the playoffs! Welcome in. Welcome to the Russ Joy Show. I'm Russ Joy. Figure that out because you're smart. It's also the name of the show. 2 points out. 2 points out. We're 2 points out. They're 2 points out. Everybody, 2 points out. That's it. It feels kind of real, doesn't it? It feels at least slightly real. They might actually do. I don't know how to feel. I mean, I'm not going to jinx the whole thing here, but it does kind of sort of, to some real extent, feel real that the Flyers could actually figure out a way to make it into the postseason. It's no longer a pipe dream. They have a legitimate path to making the playoffs. They don't quite hold all the cards. They don't quite have their own destiny in their hands, but they're so unbelievably close to making it happen. So we're going to talk about that. We also have to talk about, I don't know if you guys know, the Phillies are back. Well, they won the opener, and the opener was very exciting. We were very excited to see the Phillies come back and live their best lives. And then the Phillies kind of did this thing that the Phillies sometimes do, where they forget how to hit, and the pitching doesn't live up to the hype, and all of a sudden everything falls apart. So, not great, friends. Not great. But we'll get to the Phillies in a little bit. And then, of course, we have to get to your team, your town, your Philadelphia 76ers, because, that's another thing going on right now. The Sixers might actually have a chance of doing something fun, doing something kind of special. I'm also trying to figure out, I'm seeing people in the comments, so I know that the show is live on YouTube, but for some reason, it's not reporting it over on StreamYard, which is very odd. I see all of you commenting, so I know that you're real, and I know that you're here, but it's just very strange. Nothing is showing up, which is odd. Anyway, welcome into the show. Hope you're having a great day. I hope you had a wonderful weekend, and I hope that you're having a marvelous Monday. But I think today is going to be a really strong day, and I think it's going to be a strong week, and I tend to think that it's going to be a strong close to the season for the Philadelphia Flyers. So we're going to start with the Flyers. We'll get to the Phillies. We'll get to the Sixers. I got to be honest with you. Last night was something. Because when you look at the schedule, right, one of the things that we all probably would agree with is if you looked at the schedule a few weeks ago, you'd say, all right, schedule loss. You look at Dallas and you say schedule loss. You look at Carolina, you say schedule loss. You look at Detroit and you say, you hope that you can win 2 out of 3. You look at that West Coast swing, those 3 games against the Sharks and the Kings and the Ducks, and you say, well, hopefully you can get maybe 2 of those, or you walk away with 4 points, a win, and 2 loser points, something. And just when it feels like this team is about to kind of, not let you down, but right when it feels like this team is about to hit that kind of critical juncture where in years past they come up really, really small, they sweep a road trip. They take down the Dallas Stars at home. And then you kind of mix in there that earlier in the week, they also had a kerfuffle where they lose at home to Columbus. Coming off that 3-game road sweep, they lose at home to Columbus in a 4-point game, and they don't even pick up a loser point. And you're like, ugh. But last night, we're sitting down at Xfinity Mobile Arena doing the Press Row show, and I don't like scoreboard watching. It's just not my thing. I think that when you scoreboard watch, you start to overhype in your own mind how important some of these games are, right? I really do. I think that you overhype in your own mind the importance of a specific game. And listen, Columbus and Boston last night going to a shootout on the surface is a big game. And on the surface, it appears as though that could be problematic, right? You don't want to see both of those teams end up with a point, and obviously one of them is going to end up with 2 points, and you don't want that because you're chasing both of those teams. But, like, it did kind of feel nice to watch Boston pull that one out, and then to see, all right, if you're the Flyers, well, now you're only 2 points out of a playoff spot, right? Like that, there was kind of a nice little boost there. Now the Flyers still had to get the job done at home. It's fun to think about and tantalizing to think about being 2 points out, but like if you fall flat on your face, well, then it's not tantalizing at all. At that point, then it's just very, very disappointing. So I want to take a look here real quick with everybody at where things stand in the Eastern Conference right now, because it is really important to note that the Flyers have been, I mean, when I say kicking ass and taking names, like they really have been kicking ass and taking names. And they're on a hell of a stretch. So I want to make sure that we get full context here. I'm just trying to pull this up a little bit differently. And we'll take a look at the only other teams remaining that, you know, maybe it matters in any meaningful way. But like the Flyers have been so much better to close out this season than I think anybody was going to give them credit for. Let's take a look at where things stand as of this morning. Now, again, this will change. If you're listening to the show on Monday night, it may have already changed. If you're listening on Tuesday, it may have already changed. But like, here's where things are right now. I know that this might be kind of hard to see, so I might do a little bit of zooming over here from time to time. But like, the Flyers, as they wake up this morning, have 86 points in 73 games. That means they are 2 points behind the Penguins for third in the Metropolitan Division. Pittsburgh has also played 73 games. But then you look ahead of them. The Islanders have 89 points, right? So they are 3 points up on the Flyers, but the Flyers have a game in hand on the Islanders. You look at the wild card. The Blue Jackets are 2 points ahead of the Flyers, but the Flyers have a game in hand. So right now, you look at it and you go, all right, that Columbus game looms large, because if that Columbus game goes the other way, regulation-wise, the Flyers are where Columbus is, and Columbus is where the Flyers are. The Flyers right now would be in a wild card spot with the chance, you know, being 1 point behind the Islanders for second in the Metropolitan Division. That is where they would have ended up if they had won that game against Columbus. So they didn't. So we don't live in the ifs and whats and the fruits and nuts and all that stuff. But we do live in the realistic world of saying, yeah, that Columbus game was a big loss. And yet, going out and picking up 2 points against the Stars in a game that, like, I think most of us probably would have expected them to lose, probably in regulation, it's a hell of a win. So you look at this now and you go, all right, 2 points behind Pittsburgh, 2 points behind the Blue Jackets, 3 points behind the Islanders. And then you start to think to yourself, are these teams playing well? And that's when we go take a look over at this column over here. Record over their last 10 games. The Islanders, 6-4-0, so just barely over 500. Pittsburgh, 4-4-2. I like to round that to 4-6, so they're under 500 in their last 10 games. You look at Columbus. What has Columbus done? 5-3-2. Round that off to 5-5. They are 500. And then you look at your Philadelphia Flyers. 8-1-1. 8-1-1 over their last 10. They've got an 8-game road winning streak. But they're 8-1-1 in their last 10. That is bananagrams. No one saw this coming. Not a soul. And even if you talk to the Flyers players and they say, oh yeah, we knew we were going to go 8-1-1. No, they didn't. Nobody knew this. Nobody had an idea. We got to give a special shout this morning too. And we're going to take a look at strength of schedule and everything in a second. But we got to give a guy a little bit of credit today. All right, we do. We've got to give one dude a lot of props, and especially a lot of props from last night. Okay? And before we go any further, I want you to stare into this man's eyes. We all owe, at least right now, pending him regressing and falling back to what he was in the beginning of the year, we owe Sam Ersson an apology. We do. He had a terrible start to the season. There's no making an excuse. He had a terrible start to the season. His season was going so poorly that his own nation decided not to take him to the Olympics. And if you remember, during Four Nations, Sam Ersson played really, really well. Everybody seems to have given up on this guy, and you got to give him credit. He kicked ass last night. He had a moment of left-handed larceny against the Stars that made me jump out of my seat. Sam Ersson deserves a lot of credit. They don't win that game last night if he's not on his game. He was on his game. He nailed it. And so we wish Sam Ersson all the happiness in the morning. I hope that Sam Ersson woke up this morning and he was just thrilled to be alive. because he deserves it. That was a hell of a game last night. Now, one thing that we want to take a look at, even in his case, right? On the season, the numbers aren't particularly good. Like right now, as you know, after last night ended, even with as good of a night as last night was, he's got a 3.12 goals against and an 870 save percentage, which is, bad. We're not going to try to sell that as being anything else. However, I do want to point out that since January, and January was a terrible month for him, he went 2-5-0 in 7 starts in the month of January. He had a 4.37 goals against average and a save percentage of 835 in January. That's the point where we were all like, holy shit, this is bad. And remember, he had to play a lot of games because Vladar ended up getting hurt. And then they had to bring up Kolosov, which didn't go well. How did he bounce back? Well, he only got 1 start in the month of February, and a lot of that was because of the Olympics. But in the month of February, right, he started 1 game. I think he came in relief in another game. He had a 1.95 goals against and a 920 save percentage. This month, the month of March, again, we're going from 4.37 and 835 in January. Here in the month of March, he has posted a 1.34 goals against average and a save percentage of 937. His save percentage alone is up 102 from where it was in January. His goals against has dropped nearly, it's 3.03. Now, he's only started 4 games compared to 7 in January, but still, you got to give the guy credit. He has somehow locked down that position. He's locked down that backup spot, and he has absolutely risen to the moment for this team. They desperately needed him. I mean, listen, we knew how this was going early in the year. Darth Vladar starts a game, you feel like you're going to win. Sam Ersson's in net, we all laugh and wonder how many are going in. Last night, he was on his game. This entire month, he's been fantastic. He really has been. So if you go back over his last 5 starts, I mean, you're talking about a guy who has goals against of, I don't know. I don't want to do the total math here, but it's probably somewhere around like 1.4. I know how to do the math on it, and it comes out a little bit higher than that. But I think because it's skewed more for March, you're probably looking at somewhere around like a 1.5 goals against average and a save percentage in the vicinity of like 925. That's a hell of a number. Those are hell of numbers to put up if you're the backup goalie. So Sam Ersson gets a lot of credit for last night. He does. I'll be out to the comments here in a second, but I think we need to actually acknowledge how good Sam Ersson has been. Because we certainly acknowledged when he was playing like dog doo-doo. So now that he's kind of figured it out and he's putting things together, I do feel like it's now the fair thing to do, to point out when he's doing well. Now, I do want to take a look in a little bit here at the remaining strength of schedule, because I think that part is where things get very, very interesting for the Flyers and for those that they're competing with in terms of those final playoff spots, whether it's in the Metropolitan Division or the wild card. So I do want to make sure that we get out there, and we will here very briefly and very soon. But first, I'm going to go out to the comments because I think that the people have waited long enough. I did see some people putting out some very funny reasons why I was a few minutes late. It's honestly because I was watching Phightin Words. I was watching Phightin Words, and I was trying to figure out when they were going to end. And they didn't end, and so we went live. But I'm going to go out to the comments, and then we'll talk about the strength of schedule, and then we'll eventually get to the Phillies, who dropped their first series of the season, and we'll get to the Sixers, who look kind of dangerous. Don't get your hopes up, but maybe a little bit. You want to get your hopes up a little bit, feel free. I'm getting my hopes up. Let's see. Greg Bondarenko's here, says, good morning, Russ and Russ Joy fans. Hello, Greg. Let's see. Healthy Productions 4 asks, is this pre-recorded? Well, the fact that it didn't start at 10 o'clock sharp means we're live. Let's see. Nick Abe says, Russ, it's playoffs or bust for both teams, meaning the Flyers and the Sixers. 100%. 100%. Fawcett's here, says, greetings. Connor Allen says, I am here. Ford is here. You're welcome. Ford is also, we're going to get an early F-bomb here. Okay, so just, keep your, mute the car, mute the audio for a second if you got kids in the car. And remember, this wasn't me. This is Ford's fault. Ford says Duke fornicated with his bracket, fornicated with it hard. Yeah. That UConn shot was absolutely bananagrams. Wild stuff. Chris Friedis here says, I'm torn about the Flyers. They're playing hard and are focused on the small details. With that said, talent-wise, they are really, really limited, and that is true. And this is where a lot of times I try to look at things holistically, right? I try not to be a prisoner of the moment. If you had told me at the beginning of the season, the Flyers are going to make no real significant impact trades the entire season, and with, what is it 9 games to play? What are they at right now? Are they at 9 games? I think it's a 9 game. Yeah, 9 games to play. They're 2 points out of a playoff spot, but they're like 3 points out of second place in the Metropolitan Division. Is that a success or a failure? I candidly would have probably said, well, if they didn't make any big moves, I need a little bit more context, but I tend to think it's a failure because I went into this season saying they really kind of do need another top player. And shy of that, it's kind of hard to say it's a success. And yet, if you make the playoffs and you're second or third in the Met and you play against another team from within your division, I like your chances of having a long series in the first round. And the fact that we're seeing Alex Bump and Denver Barkey, and before he got hurt, we were seeing a good amount of Nikita Grabenkin. And oh, by the way, Porter Martone is going to likely play tomorrow. And at the very least, he'll play, or at the worst, he'll play on Thursday at home. You put all that together, there are a lot of reasons to feel good about this team and to feel like, you know what? They might be talent deficient. But if these guys, especially these younger players, are part of a legitimate playoff run, like from post-Olympic break, this team has the second most points in hockey behind only Buffalo since the break. If all these young dudes are helping your team row in the right direction and lock down a playoff spot, I will take that. I will take that over the high pick. I will, because that means that all those young guys are contributing in a meaningful way. And when you see an Alex Bump get on the score sheet and a Denver Barkey get on the score sheet, you take that in this playoff experience or this chasing of the playoffs, and I do think they're going to get in. That is great for morale. That is not a shallow, fake playoff run where it's a veteran-laden team and Nick Delorier's in the lineup every night. You have young dudes that are contributing to it. This is good for their development. It's certainly better than the alternative from a few games ago where I said, well, you either got to go all in and try to win with 15 or 16 games left, or you got to tank. You got the bottom has to fall out. If the bottom had fallen out with these young guys in the locker room, you're going to start having a lot of finger pointing. You're going to have a lot of frustrations with the coaching staff. You might have frustrations with the leadership on the team. Ultimately, it's a bad thing to expose your young guys to. So this does kind of end up being a good scenario for this team. Now, if we zoom out, a lot of it's going to come down to, like, what does Porter Martone look like when he's in the lineup? What does he look like over these last 9 or so games? Can his game translate? Can Martone help a power play? Will Barkey and Bump remain in the lineup? Will they be given opportunities to succeed? When Grabenkin is healthy, will he be back in the lineup? Those are the things that I look for in the midst of a rebuild. It's great. I actively love the fact that they are so close to getting into the playoffs and doing it with a lot of the young dudes that are going to be part of the future of this team. I'm happy about all of it. But make no mistake about it, if this changes over the next few days, over the next few games, and they're still in the hunt, but then you start seeing Tocchet fall back into, well, we need to play the vets over the young guys, then I may blow a gasket. So we'll see. Nick Ave says, the Flyers have to play hard every night or they lose. We had an adage. When I used to coach soccer, there was a thing that we kind of lived by. Hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work. The Flyers do not have the talent of a good number of teams that they've had to play this year. They don't. Had it not been for Dan Vladar, this team would probably be bottom 5, bottom 6 in the league. That's how much of a swing having a competent goalie can make. And all that said, yeah, they got to work their asses off. They do. But they're doing it together. You can't look at that team on a night in and night out basis and say, oh yeah, you got a bunch of dudes who are just kind of riding the coattails of their teammates. You don't have a lot of that. You have, as they're rolling 4 lines, those guys look like they're going out in there and busting their ass. When you're rolling out 3 different defensive pairs and those guys look like they are giving everything they've got, I do kind of question how much longer can they do it, but they've done it. I mean, they've done it so far to this point, so I got to believe that they can keep it going. And given the fact that only, was it 3 of them went to go play in the Olympics, I mean, they in theory should be well rested relative to like what the end of March typically feels like on an NHL body. Let's see. Landro says, at least we get to see some games that matter. I agree with that. I think it's great. I really do. The buzz in the building last night was gigantic. It was really great. We'll get to the Phillies in a little bit, but Ford says, at least we don't have to wait until October for the Phillies bats to go cold. That is true. All right, real quick. I want to get to some of my favorite reasons that I was late for today's show. I think Amadeo needs to put something together. There's got to be like, he did like the Ant versus Flyers Twitter thing. I think we need, why was Russ late today? And like have an espresso, like spill out on a keyboard or something. I think that'd be a lot of fun. All right, anyway. Fawcett says, Russ has his cup warmer, had his cup warmer break, or his coffee spilled, or raisins got stuck in the washing machine again. I forgot about the raisins. That was a bad day. That was a hell of a job to get those raisins unstuck from the washer. That was not a good day. I haven't used my coffee warmer all winter. It's over there. I haven't used it the entire winter. I don't know why. Ford says, or he's putting more WD-40 in his hair. Oh, God. Fawcett says, which kid threw up on him? Greg Bondarenko asks, is Russ still stuck at the center? It was a long night for the Snow the goalie crew. I love that. All right, back to the hockey. B Condor 1 says, do you believe in miracles? We were talking about this last night on Press Row Show. I can't think of a time, and Ant had a hard time, and Bundy with his elephant memory where he doesn't forget Jack Diddley squat. We couldn't come up with a season where the Flyers have ended on a really high note like this. I mean, if they're able to put together a strong remaining 9 games to get into the playoffs, given where they were after a collapse in January, I think it goes down as one of the best endings, if not the best ending to a season in 2 decades. I know that there's like the shootout that got them into the playoffs. That's a little bit different. That really came down to the very last play of the season. But like in terms of strong play to end the year, this feels like it's on a totally different level. Nicholas is here, says, good morning from Allentown. Happy Martone Mania Day. What you gonna do, brother, when Porter Martone runs wild on you, brother? Maybe we shouldn't do that, but yeah. Yeah, it's an exciting time. AJ's here, says, how about those 8-1-1 Flyers? Months ago, I said the Rangers would be a playoff team and the Flyers wouldn't based on the coaches each team brought in. Boy, was I wrong. It's okay to admit you're wrong, AJ. It's okay. I think this is Anthony. Like, not Anthony Sanfilippo. This is Anthony DeGrazio, I think, right? But it says Antia PQCQ2. That looks like an old AIM name. It does. That looks like an AOL Instant Messenger name. I need him to put up some quotes to a Dashboard Confessional song for the next comment. We're just going to put that up as his away message. It says, Russ, it's happening. It feels like it might be. Nick Abe says, what about when they play Tampa or Carolina? That's the beauty of making it in as one of the 2 metropolitan teams and second or third metropolitan team. You don't have to play those teams in the first round. If they make it in as a wild card, they're getting boat raced in the first round. But if they make it in as one of the Met teams, I like their chances of having a nice first round series. They might even win the first round series. I have no idea. Healthy Productions 4 says, Russ, I've never been so happy to see that mustache. I don't know if you noticed, though, the beard is starting to come in. I got to shave this off. I do. It's starting to come in. It's a little bit past the stubble now. But I'm a little bit worried. Like I'm not superstitious. I'm only a little stitious. But like I haven't shaved since they've gone on this run. That's not true. I did. I shaved before I went to New York last week. So they have won games since I last shaved. But now I'm a little bit stitious. Like I don't want to shave this off now and then they lose. I'm a little bit worried. Just a little bit worried. Clue says, as long as they get in, who cares? Let's see some glimpses of playoff hockey. I tend to agree with that. I do. I think there's a lot to be said for it. I think getting playoff hockey going through that building would be gigantic for this team. And what's the best way to say this? Okay. Making the playoffs is important for this team. Making the playoffs is important for the Philadelphia Flyers. It's important for the guys in the locker room. It's important for the coaches, ownership, all that. It is especially important for the Flyers' chances of trying to attract free agents, not this offseason when there are none, unless you go restricted free agent. Hello, Adam Fantilli. How you doing? Leo Carlson, how you doing? But we're talking about like future free agent classes. We're also talking about guys who have no movement clauses in their contracts that may have had the Flyers on those lists, who then watch this Flyers team go on this kind of a run at the end of the season after having a pretty steady season, January notwithstanding. And they say, you know what? That team's got some youth. It's got some vets. It's got some winning to do. Oh, and by the way, it's a hell of a place to play. Yeah, you know what? I'm going to take them off that list. Hey, front office, get me out of whatever hellscape I currently play in. I actually would consider the Philadelphia Flyers. That's why the playoffs this year are especially important. And I do think it's good for the young guys, and I do think it's good for camaraderie and, sending this thing in the right direction. But I really do think that it could have an impact on potential free agents and trade targets. And we will see. Let's see. Connor Allen says, you just have to make it in. Just have to. I tend to agree. Bondarenko is going to go to Sheets. Good on you, Bondarenko. Try the breakfast burrito and then let me know how you feel. You'll feel good. Let's see. WAJ says, are we now hoping Brantford shits the bed so our 1C can help us win the cup? Stop. Yo, I said this to intern Andrew last night. I was like, the one positive to everybody being so aligned about Jetlachenko is like, if Jetlachenko ends up becoming a stud, then we all have to say together that we were wrong about Jetlachenko and we celebrate. And if we're all right about Jetlachenko not being a particularly impactful player, well, then we were all right about Jetlachenko not being a particularly impactful player. Like, because the overall belief in that guy is, like 85% of people are in one camp and then 15% are dumb. We have a chance here. We're all going to cheer for Luchenko, though. It's not like we want to see him fail. I don't want to see him fail. I'd love to see him prove me wrong. It'd be great. I just wouldn't put a lot of money on it. Let's see. What else is going on over here? Michael Sirkin says, Philadelphia Wings are ceasing operations. Is that real? Philadelphia Wings? That can't be real. Is it real? Is it? I mean, oh my God, they are. Yeah. Breaking news. Philadelphia Wings ceasing operations following the 2025-26 season. Okay. Back to the Flyers. Okay. Let's see. Raymond Sepper says Ersson is playing for a contract next year. If not, the Flyers need another backup goalie. Yes. Frank Music asks, does it make sense to sign Martone and burn a year if we're not making the playoffs? Yes, it does. Because Martone is going to get into this lineup in these games that matter with a chance to make the playoffs. Even if they miss it by 2 or 3 points, yes, it's worth burning the year. Because what you can't have happen is Cutter Gauthier. Now, Danny Briere was asked last night about whether or not the expediency with which they got Martone signed had anything to do with the way that things fell apart with Gauthier. And he said no. And he can say that. This team could not run the risk, right? I am not saying, because I have not gotten any indication that Martone would have been like, well, fuck you guys. You're not gonna burn a year of my ELC here for me to play 9 games. Well, I also want out. I've not gotten anything even remotely close to that. I think it's more of a PR thing. I think it's more of a front-facing public relations thing to the fans. If Martone gets eliminated, right? If Michigan State gets eliminated like they did, and the Flyers don't sign him to an ELC, and now Martone is sitting at home going into the summer, there would be a contingent of this fan base who are psychotic enough to say, oh, it's happening again. Them signing him, bringing him in, Let him play all 9 games. Let him get his feet wet. Hopefully, they give him an opportunity on the power play, which can't be much worse than it's been. Let Martone get some decent minutes. Let him get some good opportunities to help this team score. And maybe, regardless of whether they get into the playoffs, that is a jumping off point for him where he goes into the offseason. He's like, yo, I have arrived. I'm an NHL player, and I'm going to attack this offseason as an NHL player. I think it'd be great. Truly. All right, I got to skip because I see, man, where I'm very far behind on a lot of these comments. So, Tom Farrell also asked about the Wings. I don't want this to be insensitive to people who like lacrosse, but I don't care. Yeah, I do. I wish I cared. Maybe, but I don't really care. Sorry to the Wings. Sorry to the lacrosse fans out there. I don't think have I ever actually attended a Wings game. I think the only Wings game I've ever attended is when I was like staying late after a Flyers game, and it was either I was staying late after a Flyers game and writing a story, or it was I got to the arena really early, and it was the end of a Wings game. I've never actually gone to one by choice. Again, not meant to poo-poo on the Wings, but they don't move the needle for me. So sorry to the Wings. I'll tell you what though, we might not have the Philadelphia Wings anymore, but we got a lot of wings on the Philadelphia Flyers. Am I right? They're talking about Tyson Forster coming back. You hear that? Oh yeah. All right. Let me speed run through some of the. Oh, look, see, this is smart. See, Matt Ott. He put this up 11 minutes ago in the comments, but Tyson Forster. This is the thing that like we're going to have a conversation about between now and the end of the season, because last night the rumors were going. Last night, legitimately, there was a lot of scuttlebutt that Tyson Forster wants back into the lineup. Now, this probably is one of those times where it's good that the player doesn't make his own decisions on when he is and isn't in the lineup. But Tyson Forster is going to come back. Every indication right now is that he may get back in this lineup with 2 or 3 games to go, especially if it looks like they're in playoff contention. I mean, think about just think about this at the beginning of the year. The Flyers are going to be 2 points out of the playoffs on March 30th. Alex Bump is in the lineup. Denver Barkey is in the lineup. Porter Martone signs his ELC and he'll be in the lineup. Oh, and by the way, Tyson Forster, who you lost, presumably for the season, actually is going to come back right before the playoffs. I mean, again, I'm not trying to overhype the situation here. I could overhype the shit out of this situation. I mean, listen, if you want to play this game, let's just play the ridiculous game, okay? This Flyers team, if they make that second spot in the Metropolitan or even the third, and they have to square off against the Islanders or the Penguins or the Blue Jackets, and you're telling me that Barkey and Bump are doing well, Martone is going to be in the mix, and Tyson Forster is going to be back for that playoff series, I think you win a playoff series. Forster being back definitely gets you over that hump. I think you actually do win a playoff series if Tyson Forster is back and even 85% of what Tyson Forster can be. He's that big of an impact for this team because cascading effect on the rest of the lineup. And if Dan Vladar is going to play as well as he has all year, and Sam Ersson is going to be this dude who's got a 1.37 goals against average in the month of March, and he's going to be that as the backup, I got to tell you, you could win a first-round series against a fellow Metropolitan Division team. Am I bullish on them having a long second-round series or winning one? No. But, there's an actual path. You could go, woo, oh. And remember, teams that do have a hot goalie, they tend to do very well in the playoffs. And if you're going to add a guy back in the lineup like Forster who could actually put the puck in the back of the net, all things change. It's very, very interesting. Okay. Nicholas also asks, do you risk Tyson coming back early-ish and getting re-injured, though? If you know they're not making a deep playoff push, do you let him fully heal for next year? That's where the doctors have to make the call. Tyson Forster cannot make that call. He might be a lovely young man. He doesn't know shit about shit. If you're Tyson Forster, you listen to the doctors. If you're the organization, you listen to the doctors. If the doctors say he's fully healed, Tyson Forster comes back in. If they say, well, he's 85% and there is a risk of re-injury, then he doesn't come back in. Doesn't. Because the worst case scenario is he rushes it and he tries to come back with 5 games left in the season and they miss the playoffs and he re-injures. Then you're like, oh, God, this is the worst case scenario. You don't want that. You have a way to mitigate that. So I think if they have a chance to get one of those 2 Metropolitan spots and win a first-round series, yeah, you bring Tyson Forster back. Jay Maddox over here with another question that's sort of Flyers related, and then we're going to get over to the Sixers and the Phillies. Jay Maddox 49 says, Russ, on a serious note, how about Vegas bringing in Johnny Torts? I'm pushing all in on daily bag skates in the desert. Tortorella getting hired is insane. And the funny thing is, Tortorella's contract is apparently only for the 8 remaining games plus the postseason, and that's it. There's nothing else in that contract. They're apparently going to reevaluate the situation at the end of the year, whatever the hell that means. But as of right now, it's 8 games plus the playoffs. I got to tell you, Cassidy's a really good coach. I think it's an insane move. And at the same time, I would not be surprised if Tortorella takes that team deeper in the playoffs than they were going to get with Cassidy. I mean, the one thing that is a problem, right, if you're Torts, Tortorella has had a ton of success in this league. However, a lot of times it has happened with a very good netminder. Don't look at the goalie situation right now in Vegas. It ain't good. If Torts can figure out a way to maximize everybody in front of the goalie, maybe Vegas can make a little bit of noise in the Western Conference. But that goalie situation is dog doo-doo. It's not quite as bad as last year with the Flyers when you had that rotating cast of Ersson, Kolosov, and Fedotov, but it's pretty bad. It's pretty bad out there. Those are my thoughts on Torts. I think Torts is actually going to be A-okay with Vegas to end the year. Real quick, though, and I just thought of this, right, before we get off of the Flyers. We all saw this stuff going around, right? But Porter Martone signing his ELC is a great bit of business for this team. It's a really exciting thing. And then you add on to that this overtime win where Zegras kind of lulls the opposition to sleep and goes 5-hole on DeSmith. It was a great night at Xfinity Mobile Arena. It truly was. That was not quite an all-time win, but that is a win that is indicative of a team that believes in one another. Now, I did promise I was going to show you guys this before we got off the team. So real quick, here's your strength of schedule remaining this season. So as things currently stand, right, you're looking at the Islanders, Columbus, and I guess to some extent Boston. I think Boston's going to pull away on that top wild card spot. But you're looking at these teams, you go, all right, Islanders have the 2nd toughest strength of schedule remaining. Columbus has the 3rd toughest strength of schedule remaining. The Flyers are way down here in 7th. So you take a look at who the Islanders have to play. They've still got Carolina. They have Carolina twice, and so does Columbus. Both teams also still have Buffalo once. Both teams also have the Canadiens. And then here's where things diverge a little bit. The Islanders have the Penguins, the Senators, and the Flyers. And then Columbus has Boston and the Red Wings. Now, here's an interesting thing that has pivoted. I think it was since yesterday. The Flyers went from being easiest opponents over to toughest opponents because they're so close in the playoff race. But look at this. Carolina twice, Buffalo once, Montreal once, and then either Pittsburgh or Buffalo, and then Ottawa or the Red Wings. These are tough schedules for both the Islanders and the Blue Jackets. And so then you look at the Flyers and you go, all right, what do you guys have? 1 game against Carolina, tough game. 1 game against Montreal, could be a tough game. 1 game against Boston, who you're technically chasing. Going to be a tough game. 1 against the Islanders, who you're chasing. Tough game. 2 against the Red Wings. Those are massive games. So those are all huge. The Jets have kind of gotten themselves back into it a little bit. The Devils really doesn't matter. And then you've got the Capitals, who are technically behind you. They're 3 points behind, but you have a game in hand on them. I'm not saying that Washington's going to give up. They're 6-2-2 in their last 10, but that feels very unlikely to go anywhere. So That's where the Flyers are at today. A little bit of positivity. How about a little bit of positivity on a Monday morning? Come on now. All right. Where do we go next? The Phillies or the Sixers? I guess we'll go to the Phillies. I sometimes say this on the show, but if you want the deep dive into everything going on with the Phillies, if you want the deep dive and the advanced stats on what you have seen and heard from the Phillies, go check out Phightin Words. Bob and Ant did, I think, an hour-plus show this morning, and they dove into a lot of stuff. Now, we didn't get to hear the rest of it because we had to go live at this show, but I would encourage you to go check out the show, Phightin Words, PH Phightin Words, on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, wherever you get your podcasts. But I'm going to hit you with some higher-level thoughts, okay? I'm not sounding the alarm on the Phillies yet. We are 3 games into the season. The top of this order has got to figure it out. And they got to figure it out fast. Let's rewind a little bit. Let's rewind a week and a half ago. We're talking World Baseball Classic. And I said, hey, would be cool to see some guys go out there, perform well, carry the momentum forward. Kyle Schwarber, first game of the season. Home run in his first at-bat, gets the Phillies up 2-0. You go, whoa. Kyle Schwarber, who was a bona fide stud in the World Baseball Classic, he's doing it. You look at Aaron Nola, and we said, hey, it'd be really, really swell if Aaron Nola, who we are trying to extend some grace to this year, we are, probably because he pitched for Italy, and that's got him a nice little spot in my heart, you know? You look at Aaron Nola, and you say, hey, we're going to show a little bit of grace to Aaron Nola, and maybe he's going to piece it together this year. He pitched really, really well in the World Baseball Classic. Carry that momentum forward. He allowed a home run, or he allowed 2 home runs in his first start of the season. That's not good. The long ball has always been the bane of his existence. He allows 3 earned runs, 5 hits over 5 innings pitched. That has him at an ERA of 5.4. Not ideal. Not great. Not horrific. Had 7 strikeouts, 2 walks. It's not great. It's also not backbreaking. And a Phillies offense that features Trey Turner and Kyle Schwarber and Bryce Harper and JT Realmuto, even though he very much seems to be on the way down, and Adolis Garcia and a white-hot Bryson Stott coming out of spring training, and Marsh and young Crawford. Like, you put all that together, and Alec Bohm, suing his parents for $3 million. Alec Bohm. That lineup, even though it's not perfect, and even though it's one I pretty much publicly decried Dave Dombrowski for not upgrading, they still have to be able to score more than 3 runs and win a game. And in fairness, they did almost have a come-from-behind win. They did force extra innings when it felt like everything was DED dead. But this top of the lineup, man, it was absolutely brutal. Like, I think they were 5 for 47 this series. Schwarber hits that Schwarbomb, and that felt like the only impactful hit. Harper had, a broken bat hit in the 9th inning of a game. Hooray. Great job, Bryce. I had to tell you, and I did hear this part of the show with Ant and Bob this morning. If Bryce Harper doesn't look right, I brought this up around the World Baseball Classic, and people thought I was nuts. But, like, Harper's moody, and you could tell that Harper feels jaded. And I don't know how much of it is Dave Dombrowski's elite comments. I don't know how much it is that, like, the Phillies gave a huge extension to Kyle Schwarber. They splashed cash on Jesus Luzardo. They splashed cash on Christopher Sanchez when they didn't have to, but they did, and it was the right thing to do. They brought back JT Realmuto for a pretty big number, all things considered, especially where he's at age-wise. And Bryce Harper has previously stated that he wants an extension, and Dombrowski was like, no, we're not doing that. Harper doesn't look happy, and I get it. It's early, and like it'll probably look different after he starts crushing a few home runs, but the dude doesn't look like the guy from a couple of years ago or from 3 years ago. Like, just his affect looks different. He looks like a guy who's there to do a job and go home, whereas 2-3 years ago, he looked like a guy who was overjoyed to be at the ballpark and overjoyed to be to receive the adulation of thousands of people in the stadium. He doesn't look the same. And I brought up the World Baseball Classic because if you remember, he came into spring training and there was the bullshit about the elite shirt, right, that he wore during batting practice. And then there was him turning Dave Dombrowski's comments from the fall into another news cycle. And then went on to a couple of podcasts and also complained about Dave Dombrowski's comments from the fall, which to me isn't a very good leader thing to do months after the fact. He got to the World Baseball Classic and he was like slobbering and gushing when talking about Aaron Judge and hitting in a lineup with Aaron Judge and looking up literally to Aaron Judge. The affect that he had at the World Baseball Classic, at least to start, is like the Philly from 2 or 3 years ago. And then they don't win the World Baseball Classic championship. He comes back to this team, and he didn't have a good weekend. He had a terrible World Baseball Classic. Terrible. There's no spinning that into, it was like a passable. It was a terrible tournament for Bryce Harper, and it was terrible relative to what the U.S. team needed him to do. That's not exaggerating. That is the truth. If you don't like the truth, I'm sorry. It may hurt, but like you need the truth. And then he came in and he didn't have a good series against the Rangers at all. He had an RBI. Awesome. Great job, Bryce. How about the rest of the time? Not good. There's no way to spin it. He has an 091 average. All right? 091. Again, I get it. It's 3 games. You have to take everything in like limited samples. He's only had 11 at-bats. He's got 1 hit and 11 at-bats. And he doesn't look like a guy who's got the right affect right now. So, that to me is a concern. It truly is. That is a concern. We'll see if it matters. We'll see what happens. We'll see if anything changes. But right now, that's kind of where things are at. Harper doesn't look good. Nola, not great, but not terrible. 3 earned runs in 5 innings. I'm not sounding the alarms yet. The top of the lineup being dog doo-doo is bad. I will understand if there are people right now who look at this Phillies team after the first series and say, yeah, that feels like a lot of the same. I may be out. I get it. If you're one of the people right now who watched that first series, saw the Phillies get a nice win on opening day, and then watched them have a come-from-behind game in the second game of the series, which they ultimately lost in extra innings, and then saw what happened on Sunday, and you say, yeah, like I like baseball, and as it gets warmer, I'll go to a game, or I'll turn on the radio or whatever, like I'll check it out. But I get it. If you're not like head over heels right now after that first series, I get it. I will implore many people to give it a little bit of time before you decide to be out on the team, before inevitably coming back in on the team right before the playoffs. But I get why there would be some frustration right now. All right, so that's that. We've got 5 minutes until I have to run to work. So we have to get to the Sixers. Again, Phillies discussion. If you want it in depth today, go check out Phightin Words. Great show. Great show. Part of the Joy Media stuff. So, little plug. So we have 5 minutes to spend on the Sixers, who are back in action tonight. And I said this on Friday's show. But when you finally get to see what this team looks like when it's got Paul George and VJ Edgecombe and Tyrese Maxey and Joel Embiid playing together, that is when you'll have a real feel for whether or not this team can get the job done and can make somebody's life a living hell in the playoffs. And if you remember, last Wednesday night, the Sixers did not yet have Tyrese Maxey back. And in that game, Paul George had 14 points, Joel Embiid had 33, VJ Edgecombe had 32, and Quentin Grimes, that's totally wrong. They had more than that. That's total bullshit. Paul George had 28. Embiid had 35, Edgecombe had 22, Quentin Grimes had 13 points, Justin Edwards had 12 off the bench. They scored 157 points in regulation against the Bulls. And you're like, yo, you get Embiid and Paul George back in the lineup, and they go for 63 points combined, and you're like, yo, I feel like the Sixers could actually do something, but we need to see how it's going to look once Maxey's back in the lineup as well. Well, you finally got it. You did. Because on Saturday, the Sixers travel to Charlotte, and Charlotte is also in the playoff hunt. Paul George goes for 26 points. Embiid has 29. Edgecombe has 13. Maxey returns to the lineup and scores 26. So the four that you need to play well together played well together. But I am more intrigued by the shot distribution. And again, this is where I think they're going to ultimately need to settle in, somewhere around this. Embiid and Paul George had 19 field goal attempts. Maxey had 18. So your big three led the way in field goal attempts. And it was a pretty even attack. The one place that I do look is where are Paul George's shots coming from? So of his 19 field goal attempts, 11 of them were from beyond the arc. And if you remember, I said in a perfect world, Paul George can become a guy who can become a legitimate spot-up three-point shooter. When you have guys like Edgecombe and Maxey who can slash, when you have a guy like Embiid who can collapse a defense in the paint, and Paul George can just have his way with wide-open threes or lightly contested threes. He went 4 of 11 from downtown. It's not an incredible night from beyond the arc, but it's a pretty decent night from beyond the arc. Paul George, I think, is going to settle into this role even more. And we've also seen him, and this is going to be the thing that Nick Nurse is going to have to figure out. In terms of ball handling and in terms of staggering minutes, Maxey's back in the lineup. He plays 43 minutes. I mean, so much for trying to ramp up. But if you can have moments where Paul George is out there with VJ Edgecombe, and Paul George can be your primary ball handler, or certainly a guy who can initiate some sets, that changes things. Paul George having himself in rhythm is going to be a very different beast for this team. So we're only a couple games into Paul George and Joel Embiid being back. We're only one game into Tyrese Maxey being back. But I got to tell you, I will have my eyes very firmly fixed to the TV tonight as the Philadelphia 76ers play the Miami Heat down at South Beach. And we'll reconvene on Wednesday. And we'll have a lot more to talk about. We'll talk about that Sixers game. We'll talk about whatever's going on in Phillies land. And, of course, we'll recap what happens with the Philadelphia Flyers as they take on the Washington Capitals on Tuesday night. And, again, the belief is that Porter Martone is going to make his debut on Tuesday night against the Capitals. So I will talk to all of you on Wednesday. Do me a favor, by the way. If you were unaware of this, Wednesday night, one of our last Snow the Goalies at Chickies and Pete's during the regular season, we'll be in Marlton, New Jersey. So come on out to Marlton, New Jersey, Chickies and Pete's. It's a big, beautiful Chickies and Pete's. 6 o'clock start for Snow the Goalie Radio on Wednesday. Make the plans to get down there and join us and talk some puck. All right, so I will be back on Wednesday. Until Wednesday, this has been the Russ Joy Show, and I've been Russ Joy, but you knew that already because you're smart. It's also the name of the show. Have a fantastic rest of your day. Have a marvelous Monday, and I'll talk to all of you on a wonderful Wednesday here on the Russ Joy Show. Like the video, share the video, subscribe, ring the bell to get notified whenever we go live, and like the comment or the content that you see on TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook. Like and subscribe. 5-star review, 5-star ratings on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Pandora, Amazon Music, where you get podcasts. Okay. I did that out of order, but it's fine. Bye now.